Well, it might not quite be a million miles an hour today, but they'll be pushing 190 in the Grand Prix of Indianapolis on the road course at the famed Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The command to start engines just moments away. Down to pit road and Rick DeBrule.
Well, Simon Pagenaud has something no other IndyCar driver has. He has a champion's victory ring from the inaugural Grand Prix of Indianapolis. That's because he won the very first race here last year, the only one that's been run. You could argue that was the race that put him on track to become a driver for Roger Penske. But, of course, driving for Roger Penske, winning for Roger Penske, two different things. Been a little tougher this year, so he'd like to win today for two reasons. One, he just wants to win. Two, he wants to be the only driver ever to have that victory ring for the Grand Prix of Indianapolis. Jan Bikas?
And Rick, he wasn't the only driver who made his mark last year. Consider Sebastian Saavedra. He scored the inaugural pole position here, but unfortunately for Saavedra, he stalled the car on the grid after scoring that pole position, and he sat there helplessly right on the front. He waits. Will I be hit? Unfortunately, the answer was yes. A massive start line crash for Saavedra. He now is back this year. He was unhurt along with the others, and he has an opportunity now with Ganassi car to go out and cash in on unfinished business. Doc?
With a slim 3-point lead in the series standings, one might guess that Juan Pablo Montoya might play it a little bit conservative here, given the fact that this race had a lot of contact a year ago. Well, that guess would be wrong. This feisty Columbia does not have a patient bone in his body. In fact, don't be surprised if Montoya is one of the first ones to poke a nose under someone to make a pass. Montoya's philosophy, it's all about winning, and if I take care of winning, the championships will come. Alan?
All right, Doc, thanks. So we're ready to go. You see the drivers all buckled in their cars down on the grid, 77 degrees, and again, that threat of rain. For now, though, the track is dry, and we're ready to go with the second running of the Grand Prix of Indianapolis. Trackside now for the command.
Just close my visor.
Race fans, and now, for the most famous words in motorsports, please welcome Mary Holman George, escorted by her daughter Nancy.
Gentlemen, start your engines.
Fire up. Car go.
Ready to race at Indianapolis and get the month of May off to a flying start. The Indianapolis 500, 2 weeks from tomorrow. The green flag waves when we come back. We'll also show you this spectacular 14-turn course that'll challenge these drivers and get ready for the rush to turn number one. That's all next when the green flag waves. Cars are on the track, beginning the parade and pace laps before the start of the second Grand Prix of Indianapolis for the Verizon IndyCar Series, the month of May, underway here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So you're used to seeing Indy cars on the 2.5-mile oval track. What about this 14-turn road course that'll challenge these drivers today from the driver's perspective?
The best passing zone down into turn one. You know, we're actually going to be hitting in the draft 200 miles an hour in road course trim, which is insane. And then slamming on the brakes down to a second gear corner. Great passing opportunity there.
But the next section of corners, really turns 2, 3, 4, are all linked together. You have to have the car on the ragged edge. You can't have much understeer, you're going to be too slow. You need the car to be very pointy, very reactive. You got to carry a lot of speed because once you come off of 4 and 5, it's the long back straightaway.
Now in the back straight going to turn 7, it's another huge braking point. And when you have this type of braking points, man, it's a great opportunity for you to make a pass.
Like 12, 13, you can get a lot of entry speed into 12, but it's going to compromise your shot into 13.
It's a little bit of a dance with the pedals, a little bit of gas, a little bit of brake, depending on what the car is doing.
If you brake too much, you lock the left front. If you slow down too much, the guy in the back is going to eat you alive on the end of the straightaway. So it's a very technical place.
Fast and furious. And turns 1 and turn 7 at the end of these long, high-speed straightaways, the key portions of this Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course. So starting lineup coming across the top of your screen. Will Power on pole position. Meanwhile, we show you the high-definition onboard cameras you'll get to enjoy the race from today. Marco Andretti with our Mutual of Omaha on board. James Jakes carries the MediaTek camera. Ryan Hunter-Reay, last year's 500 winner, has the AutoNation on board. Graham Rahal, who put on such a show at Barber last race, has the Clearplex camera. Charlie Kimball, the Norvo Nordisk on board. And James Hinchcliffe carries the Lucas Oil camera. The Barber winner, Joseph Newgarden, we heard from earlier, has our Verizon on board today. And the 2013 winner of the 500, Tony Kanaan, the NTT data on board. Last year's Grand Prix winner, Simon Pagenaud, carrying the Firestone on board. And on the front row, Scott Dixon, carrying the Verizon on board today. He's outside of pole sitter Will Power. Enter at shophonda.com for a chance to start a Verizon IndyCar Series race in the Honda 2-seat IndyCar, driven by Mario Andretti. And Doug Dedman of Kannapolis, North Carolina, on board with Mario today. And I'm sure having a ball. Green flag, we are underway at Indianapolis. Will Power with a big jump on the start on Scott Dixon.
There's one body part.
Dixon around the second place car.
3 cars are stopped.
Dixon was almost through.
Full yellow, pits are closed.
Full course caution. Jack Hawksworth also signaling like Newgarden. He's stalled and needs assistance restarting.
I need a restart.
Wants to get restarted because they don't want the pace car to come out and then put them down a lap. So both of them are pleading with the safety crew, come to me first, but
They're almost to you. We'll get caught up here after we get the car started. We'll go ahead and get caught up to the back of the field.
Scott Dixon was able to keep his car fired and continue away, but Dixon, who started in second position, went around in turn number 1, and in the accordion afterwards, you saw the jam up that collected Newgarden and Hawksworth.
The straightaways we can see here is very, very wide, and all the drivers, there's a lot of room for these to be 5 abreast, but it just funnels down to enough space for one car, and that's what happens.
and Elio was trying to get on the inside, and his nose of his car ended up clipping the right rear of Scott Dixon's car. He went around. Now let's watch from up above as they all rush into turn 1. Remember, everybody's going for the same piece of real estate. It becomes very confrontational. Just takes one car to get turned around as Dixon did. Then the melee comes along.
And then when that one car gets turned around, the space shuts down by half.
So right along with Tony Kanaan.
Right side.
It looks like Castroneves might have
damaged his wing.
Yeah, and bumped into, let's see that again.
2 inside, 2 inside.
Oh, there were
Big crash.
There were 2 separate accidents. One up front and one behind Dixon.
Now with Newgarden, he stalled because he did not get the car into neutral quick enough. Everybody funneling down to one spot on the racetrack. And Eddie, you mentioned the width here coming into turn 1. So right along with number 5, James Hinchcliffe. He's just reacting to everything that's going on in front of him. He has nowhere to go.
And then you have a chain reaction. Everybody bumps into everybody.
And this is the escape road that they're going off to go and miss all the cars that are collected in turn 1.
They'll be talking about this one for quite some time. There were a lot of different things happening at the same time, Alan.
So last year, as Jan talked about in our pre-race, the standing start that had the problem and didn't work out very well. This year they went to the rolling start and had troubles when they got down to turn number 1, right at the front of the pack.
Yep.
So the second place runner, Scott Dixon, gets clipped by Elio Castroneves, who also had Simon Pagenaud pressuring him, and the jam up behind has resulted in quite an expensive opening lap tab for front wings. The view from Tony Kanaan's car through the carnage in turn 1. Charlie Kimball's look also. Live in Indianapolis, Scott Dixon, who started on the front row, having a lot of work done on his car on pit road as we get ready for a restart, an opening turn crash in the Grand Prix of Indianapolis involving 7 drivers. And a look at it again, that what caught up Scott Dixon.
Find you on the back right here. They're 3-way behind you.
So we go green with Will Power leading, now Simon Pagenaud second, Sebastian Bourdais third. And again, the run out to turn 1. But
But this time they go 2 abreast. The whole complexion of this race has changed with those 3 cars out.
See some parts of wings that went off in the background there, so somebody has collided with another car. We'll see if we can find out who that was. Sato and Sebastian Saavedra in a good tussle here. Here's Tony Kanaan. Gonna have a look to see if he can get up beside Saavedra. This is a long straightaway here going down to turn 1, generally up to about 185, 88 miles an hour. And the veteran gets it done on the rookie.
So that gets Tony Kanaan 12th position. So Scott Dixon back in 24th place after starting on the front row. And a reminder that if you're looking for Spanish language commentary of today's race, activate your SAP button, presented today by ESPN Deportes. So the complexion, you said the complexion of the race changed. Certainly the running order completely shuffled up by that turn 1 shuffle.
Dixon was definitely going to be in the position to challenge the Penske cars. Right now we have 2 Penske cars with Power and Pagenaud leading. And Bourdais is a very strong third. He's been quick, Scott, the whole season. He hasn't quite been able to pull off a great result, but when we spoke to him in the pits yesterday, he seemed very confident.
And I followed up with a conversation this morning after warm-up, and Sebastian said, you know, my car does not work that well on the red tires. That's the red sidewall tires that are the option tires. A little softer, supposed to go with more speed. He says, I get a few laps out of it, and my car starts to trail off. We've not figured it out so far to be able to run as competitive as the Penske cars.
Another inside move there. Kanaan gets by Takuma Sato for 11th. And so there's Helio Castroneves.
So now he's got his work cut out for him to make sure he gets up there as far as he can, but Power and Pagenaud are not going to be hanging around, Scott.
Well, and obviously what Helio is waiting for is you see his car twitch because he's on the gas pedal. He's trying to get a run down the straightaway, so he's on the throttle as quickly as possible. The back end steps out a little bit, but his whole goal is to move forward, and what he wants to hope for right now is that there's a yellow at some point where the pack starts to collect all together, because he's not going to be able to do it maybe just on speed. We'll watch and see.
Castroneves, one of a number of cars that pitted under the yellow for that lap 1 accident. Rick?
Yeah, the one advantage Castroneves had when he came in was he did not have a long stop. All they came in and did was replace the left rear tire. As a result, he was able to get up pretty quickly, unlike, for example, Scott Dixon and Joseph Newgarden, who had to do big wing swaps. So as a result, he was able to get out and get into the middle of the pack, unlike those other guys who were at the back of the pack.
And Dixon is second to last, and Newgarden is last.
And more importantly, they're 54 and 68 seconds behind the leader.
The only way they'll get back in the game if there is a full course yellow.
So Tony Kanaan continues to move up, picking up 10th position around Carlos Munoz. There's Munoz in the 26. Munoz part of a storyline of struggles. The Chevrolet versus Honda competition here in the IndyCar series so far this weekend has been a little lopsided in favor of the bow tie carrying group.
This track is designed in such a manner that you will see 2 things: if your car has too much drag, or if you don't have enough horsepower, because we have an incredibly long straightaway here, Scott, and the Honda has been slow in the straightaway throughout all of the testing.
And from everybody we talked to, we believe that both the cars have pretty close to similar horsepower. So what that really leads us to believe is that maybe Chevrolet has an advantage with their new aero kit that was introduced earlier this year over the Honda aero kit. So everybody believes right now that Chevrolet has a little less drag. That means the car can go through the air a little easier, and that makes the car go a little faster down the straightaway. We talked about it this morning, guys, that the Hondas were about 4 to 8 miles an hour slower than the Chevys down the straightaway this morning.
If you look at the numbers on the season, 4 races so far, top 10s, poles, top 5s, wins, and so on, the competition certainly slanted toward the Chevrolet side of the ledger thus far.
But all we've done so far is road races, and this is the last road race before qualifying for the Indianapolis 500. Come Monday, all this bodywork you see, all these little winglets and things are off, and the Speedway kit is on, and then a whole brand new game begins.
You a Jimmy Buffett fan?
I am.
Okay, just because you said come Monday twice in the show so far, I was just curious. So it'll be all right.
Is it that obvious?
What, the flip-flops you changed into and the flowered shirt after the tie on camera?
I just feel good in flip-flops.
Well, if it's any consolation, I'll be going to Florida-Georgia line on race weekend here at Indianapolis. Looking forward to that one.
So back here watching this fight from Marco Andretti on back. Marco running 13th in that 27. He's got last year's Indy 500 winner right behind him, Ryan Hunter-Reay, then Charlie Kimball, James Jakes, and Helio Castroneves back in 17th place.
And Alan, you talk about the Andretti cars. I was in their garage after warm-up this morning, and all the drivers were huddled with their engineers, which you would expect to see. But also team owner Michael Andretti was in that meeting also, trying to come up with a strategy how they can get their cars moving forward just a little bit more. And all those Honda cars right now, we know, are going a little bit slower. They certainly believe that they're working very hard, but difficult to sit back as a competitor and accept that. And Jan, you drove these cars. You understand what that's all about.
Yes, and what Marco Andretti, as well as you ride, of course, with Ryan Hunter-Reay, teammates, what they've been struggling with is inconsistency. In these types of corners, as you can see, it's a flowing racetrack. The car's not doing the same thing in each part of the corner. It's called pitch sensitivity. When the nose comes up or comes down, it's changing the handling. Marco Andretti, who's leading right now, Ryan Hunter-Reay in this group, said that at one time he just didn't see any way to see their way clear out of the trouble. Normally they know how to fix it. Ryan Hunter-Reay dives on the pit road. They have to do something. They're going to go off strategy just to see if they can pick up some speed.
Very early stop, and hoping then perhaps for a caution to gain a lot of free track position. Doc?
And it is a strategy move. They said if we do what everyone else does, we're going to be right there behind all the guys we qualified behind. So why not take some chances and go on an alternative fuel strategy? That's what they're doing now. Lap 9, they can now make it on 2 more stops. Ryan Hunter-Reay makes his first of 3 stops today.
And the thing about all these strategies, we won't know how they play out till the checkered flag waves. Scott Dixon, 55 seconds behind leader Will Power, which means he's not all that far in front of him on the racetrack. Back to Indianapolis after this word from your ABC station. Continue tonight here on ABC. Game 3 between Golden State and Memphis. We start at 8 Eastern with NBA Countdown in a series that's tied at 1 game apiece. Here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Will Power started on pole, was ahead of the big Turn 1 Lap 1 scrum, and has led every lap so far. Simon Pagenaud got through it unscathed and runs second. Power setting a new track record in qualifying yesterday. Of course, only the second year of racing on the road course here for the IndyCars, but a new track record, and telling me this morning he was particularly concerned about the starts and restarts on this racetrack because of how long the run is from the start line to the braking zone in Turn 1. He said there's a lot of things that can happen. In fact, he and I were together as the Indy Lights race. One of the preliminaries went off and started under green, and he said, "Stop, I want to watch this." And he said, that's what I'm afraid of. He has great concern about what these starts are going to be like as the leader.
Race car drivers will always use every inch of the room that's available. If you can pack 6 cars in there, there will be 6 cars in there. Unfortunately, it's just a very long straightaway here, Scott, at the start of the race, and it narrows down to just enough space for 1 car. All the drivers know it, but they think the other ones are going to back off. I'm here first, give me the space, but it doesn't work out that way when 5 people are thinking exactly the same thing.
You're right, and when you're going to the turns, you think that you can do it better than the other guy, and you're going down the straight and you say, I think I can. The closer you get to the turns, you go, I know I can, and then sometimes that doesn't work.
So there's Simon Pagenaud running second in another one of the Penske entries. Last year's winner of this race, driving for a different team, but again getting through the first turn skirmish to run in the number 2 spot. Sebastian Bourdais running third, talked about him.
a driver who has won so many races in IndyCar, has raced in Formula One. He just needs a good event, I think, to break through. But the team to beat this year has always been Penske when it comes to qualifying.
Well, he's in the soup with the Penske cars now because 3 of them are right around him. There's Juan Pablo Montoya right behind him. Juan Pablo was talking about with the added downforce and aero trim on these cars this year, he felt like he could hustle a race car around a course like that. And when I hear Montoya and hustle a race car, I think success and fun.
Absolutely, and all the other drivers I spoke to, when you talk about Montoya, they know that if he's in your mirrors, he's going to be aggressive, and if he gets close to you, you know that he's going to be very brave in trying to pass you. So you really have to make sure you give him space. Now, all these guys seem evenly matched, and I mentioned before about Sebastian Bourdais, the 3rd car on your screen, the green and black car. Interesting, because he did tell me, as I mentioned, that he did not think he could have the pace on these red sidewall tires, the option tires that the Penske cars have. So he told me his car works better with the black primary tires. So it'll be interesting to see if he's going to be able to have something for the Penske cars when they switch over to black.
Now a little gap from those front 4 back to 5th place Graham Rahal, who is the pace setter for the Honda contingent at the moment. Of course, Graham getting so much attention for that tremendous drive he made down in the last race at Barber Motorsports Park in Alabama, and a stirring run up to 2nd.
In this race, this is the biggest shock of all because he's continued where he left off at Barber. That's to be in 5th place. He's obviously the fastest of the Honda cars. They might have just figured something out. This is a young, aggressive driver. His father has won the Indy 500. They've changed the team, and he seems to be making a lot of progress this year. I think that might be the car that Honda starts focusing on.
174 miles an hour on our Honda telemetry as he hit the braking zone for turn number 7. More on Graham Rahal from Jan.
And this is a good run for Graham Rahal, better than even he predicted. Now, of course, he picked up positions after the first lap accident, but he has said that he doesn't feel there's any driver out on the moment that is driving as hard as he is. He says what's happening with the Honda package, as we've already noted, it's somewhat inconsistent. So he says the only way to go fast with this aero kit is you have to essentially overdrive the car and be ready for anything. Right here, where you just whip the car into the corner, he says, I don't know exactly what it's going to do. I'm just pushing it, and he gets out of the car, he's just wringing with sweat, and we've got a battle in turn 1, Alan.
Coletti and Kanaan, with Coletti hanging on to that spot and getting that spot for the moment over Kanaan.
And passing Kanaan is not easy at the end of a straightaway.
Stefano Coletti, the 26-year-old from Monaco, who spent the last 4 years racing the GP2 circuit and doing some winning there. Now in just his 5th drive in a Horizon IndyCar Series machine, and his first time here in an IndyCar on the Speedway road course, but he is a winner on this road course before.
In the Formula BMW, matter of fact, he only been to the United States twice previously before he came over to the Barber Open test for the IndyCar test back in March. When I spoke to him there, he said, I've only been here twice. I would like to come over here and make a name for myself. And he has won, as you mentioned, a couple of times here in North America, once up in Montreal in the Formula BMW. Doc, you have more?
Yeah, when the team was talking about Coletti, he said sometimes these European drivers who are so successful over there in GP2, they come here and they're a little bit cocky. He said, not this kid. He is very confident but not cocky. And this morning when he realized that he had qualified 10th, it reminded him when he won that BMW race here on the weekend for the Formula One, he also started 10th, so maybe it's an omen. This could be Coletti's. It was already his best qualifying effort, maybe his best finish, maybe a shot at winning here at Indy.
Doc, if he can keep Kanaan behind him for a few more laps, he's every right to be cocky.
Takuma Sato on and off pit road. Justin Wilson also on and off the pit lane here at lap number 16. So good race for position here.
You see how much of the curb these drivers are using now? Sometimes the wheel looks like it's going in the dirt.
Pit, 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 pit.
To Tony Kanaan by the sounds of it. Time to pit. We'll see what he does.
Now watch how aggressive he is. He has to make up as much time as he can getting into the pits. A very, very narrow pit entry.
And get down to the speed limit of 50 miles an hour there to not be penalized.
Another set of reds here.
on brings the car, and interesting, it's been a tough weekend for him. On Thursday, seemed to be out to lunch, just didn't have the good setup he was looking for. As a result, they ended up borrowing Scott Dixon's setup, which did the trick, helped him qualify well. No changes, just more red tires on this stop.
Remember the rules in the Verizon IndyCar Series. They have the primary tires, which are the black sidewall, a little bit harder, will last longer, but not quite be as quick off the get-go. And then the red sidewall tires, a little bit softer, but will give up later in the run. You have to run each compound for at least 2 laps in the race. Everybody expects to have the black sidewall tires on for as little as possible in this one. It'll be red for as much as you can on the Grand Prix of Indianapolis. Last year's champion of the Verizon IndyCar Series, and Juan Pablo Montoya ducks out of line from 4th place and makes his first pit stop of the race. Montoya headed toward Dr. Jerry Punch.
And you hear him calling him into the pit. The 2000 Indy 500 winner, going to get 4 tires. They're going to take the reds off and put the primary black walls on. Use them now and use the reds later in the race. No adjustments, getting it full of fuel, and he is away. God.
That was a slow pit stop. That was 2 seconds slower than the other one.
Luca Filippi is taking advantage, and they are considering changing his front wing, and they are going to do so. They've been concerned about the loss of speed because of some damage early on in the very first lap contact. This, of course, because it's under green, is going to put him way back time-wise. But in case there's a caution later and the cars repack up, at least he'll have a front wing. You'll see they're also checking the radio. He's had no communication via the radio. They check the helmet and hoping now for a caution to close up the pack.
They might have been trying to reattach that plug, the wire that goes from the helmet into the onboard radio system there, Jan. So hopefully they got that corrected as Filippi rejoins the racetrack. Now, when will we see the leader Will Power in? He was beginning to catch Joseph Newgarden in traffic. Remember, Newgarden involved in that first turn accident. There's Power now trying to dispose of Newgarden. Locking him up and overshoots turn 1.
So easy to do here. You carry so much speed. You're going from that 195 miles an hour down to 60, and it's just the case of just a fine line how far you drive that car into the turn, and you sort of flirt with it how much you can do.
And Newgarden couldn't care less that he was the series champion and that he was leading the race. He made a mistake and he just went right by him.
As you watch this, the one car you see comes out from underneath in the draft of Newgarden. Remember, you're doing 190 plus miles an hour, 195, that's called the over-under, and Newgarden did a tremendous job.
But from Newgarden's position, he actually saw that was going to happen, and he did that beautiful crossover. He went up high and then just passed over in front of him.
If you saw at the top of the screen there, Will just clipped a piece of debris that was at the exit of that corner. So here he comes onto the pit lane, followed by the 2nd and 3rd place cars, Pagenaud and Bourdais. So top 3 coming onto pit road for head-to-head competition here.
And there is some debris between 11 and 12 that the drivers keep on hitting. That's the debris you were talking about.
The lead cars come in. First you see Sebastian Bourdais in the green car in the back, Pagenaud, the red car in the middle, Will Power, the black and white car in the front. Basically all trying to work on the same fuel strategy. Bourdais was trying to save a little extra fuel but wasn't able to pull it off. With Pagenaud they wanted a minor adjustment, but Will Power still able to get out ahead of all 3.
And Pagenaud beat him by a foot.
Watching Montoya come right side of the screen, up to speed on the straightaway.
It's a drag race at turn 1, and he blocks his tires. If you do that too much, we have a square tire, and that's no fun to drive with.
So Montoya goes back to 4th place, which is where he was before the cycle of the pit stops, and the top 3 remain unchanged in the exchange.
But now he has Bourdais right on his bumper.
So as you see top of the screen, leader is now Graham Rahal, who is yet to pit. Now Graham coming onto the pit lane.
Mind your speed.
And headed toward Jan.
And they just told Graham Rahal, as they do many of the drivers, go like stink. And that's because it's an in and an out lap. They make so much difference. He went 1 lap longer. They're going to go with the black sidewall primaries, but they don't want to make any changes to the car. They've been happy with how it has been going. Again, better than expectations. After a nice quick stop, an 8-second stop for Graham Rahal.
Great pit stop.
So James Jakes is now the leader in the cycle of things, with James Hinchcliffe second. Then it'll be Carlos Huertas before you get back to Will Power next in line. There is James. The two Schmidt-Peterson Racing cars running first and second at the moment. Remember, that's the team that won this race a year ago with Simon Pagenaud driving for them.
And Dixon is in the pits.
Well, the plan for Scott Dixon is simply fuel and tires. Remember, when he came in for that very first stop when they had to replace the wings, they had a big problem getting the rear wing on, and that's what caused the big delay in the pit. When they were in looking at it that time, they made sure they wiggled that back wing just to make sure it was still solid.
And that was the first 7-second pit stop we saw.
That was fascinating. Right side of the screen between Castroneves and Coletti into turn 7. That was back for 10th place. There's Carlos Huertas coming off the pit lane. Is that Huertas or Draconi? I'm sorry, that's Draconi.
The nice thing about this track, it's so wide that you have opportunities to pass the car, not only going into the turn, but if he overshoots it a little bit, you can go underneath. As we see right now, just a little bit of trouble getting past Draconi. You hope that he gives you room. He does. So Hinchcliffe now can continue on his way, but lost a little bit of time there to his teammate, Jakes.
Update on Hinchcliffe from Jan.
And he is scheduled to pit. Remember, he had that contact on lap 1 and had to come in and change the front wing. So they have told him he is within a lap or so of pitting because he will be slightly out of sequence. So he has a great position right now. Unfortunately, he's going to be giving that up fairly shortly.
Check out the top end speed on the Honda telemetry.
It's got to get up to 185 to be close to the Chevy.
This segment here, guys, is so difficult. When I drove this track last year in the sports car, you're always leaning on the tires. You get into turn 4 here, and you got so much weight on the front of the nose. You're trying to turn the car without the back end coming around on you. Then set yourself up for the chicane right there, getting over those 2 bumps. This is the second longest straightaway here. Quick straight all the way down what they call Hallman Boulevard into 7. Hard braking. See, he closes up on Jakes under braking, but this is a timing issue now. Going through this next segment of turns, if you're off just a little bit, you'll cause yourself some speed. A long right-hander here as you get back on the gas, going up through turn 12. Another possibility for braking in here and passing, but very difficult as you get back up onto the oval.
You did all that in a vintage sports car?
Yeah, and I was worn out.
Here they come to pit road, top 2. So this will put Will Power back into the lead, finish the cycle of pit stops. Jakes in the 7, Hinchcliffe in the 5. So the cycle of stops done, and Will Power will go back around to the race lead of the Grand Prix of Indianapolis.
He's close.
Back live, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the Grand Prix of Indianapolis, the first of 3 consecutive weekends of coverage of the month of May from here at the Brickyard on ABC. Ed Carpenter trying to do something that's never been done before. Win the pole for the Indianapolis 500 for a 3rd straight time. We're on the air both Saturday and Sunday next weekend from here at the Speedway. And then, of course, 2 weeks from tomorrow, the 99th running of the Indianapolis 500-mile race. If it's anything like last year's stirring fight between Ryan Hunter-Reay and Helio Castroneves, we're in for another great treat here at the Brickyard.
I have a feeling it might be even better than last year's.
So Will Power has done a lot of the dominating. in the series so far this year. Helio Castroneves, the only driver to lead a lap in all of the first 4 races coming into today. And right now it's Power doing most of the leading in this one. Will has gotten away from those cars who came off the pit lane right with him.
What's been impressive is Rahal continues to move up the grid, now slotted into second. Remember, that is a Honda-powered car, and everybody thought that the Hondas would not be able to compete up front with the Chevrolet, so give it to Graham. He's doing a wonderful job. I think there's a new Graham inside that helmet this year, guys, because I talked to him at Barber, and he just seemed like he was really focused on the engineering, and he is now working with a whole different group. His dad's no longer on the radio calling the races for him, and so now he's able to focus on what he's doing, and he's become a more aggressive driver. And the other drivers in the paddock have talked about that, along with team managers. They say there's a different Graham Rahal this year inside the cockpit.
More on Graham Rahal from his pit, and Jan.
And I agree, Scott. We talked about that earlier, where he's decided to use that aggression to overcome whatever might be happening aerodynamically. He also is very keen on strategy. He knew that in Barber, the last race, that the Chevrolets tended to burn up the rear tires. So he wants to stay aggressive, keep pressure on the Chevrolet team, says, you know what? If they have some trouble with their tires by pushing hard and overusing them, we might be in a perfect position to capitalize, and I think they're doing just that right now.
He's going to get an opportunity to use that aggression because Simon Pagenaud is right behind him.
Remember that Graham stopped a lap after Power and Pagenaud and Bourdais, and here he comes off the pit lane, and you see he is able to get in just in front of Pagenaud off of his pit stop.
Now, from what we see right now, the next 4 corners were really difficult for him because his tire temperatures were not up as high as they should have been, and that's a very, very tricky section. So if he got through that, now he's just going to hold on as long as he can in front of Pagenaud, because for sure Pagenaud has a faster car than he does right now. I was thinking that Pagenaud would have been closer to Will Power than he is with the same equipment than what we're seeing right now.
Remember how hard we saw James Jakes and James Hinchcliffe racing when they were together in the lead just before they dove onto pit road? They're still together on the racetrack, except this time now they're back fighting for 15th and 16th. That's Justin Wilson aboard the Andretti 25, getting overtaken by Hinchcliffe.
This is a very strange track. It leads you to believe that there's a lot of room to pass somebody, Scott, but when you get your nose in there, it's difficult to get that last half a car through.
Because the car is always doing something. It's always loaded on one end or the other, and you see the turns here are very flowing. So you see some drivers lock up tires every once in a while. It's because you're sort of playing with the brake pedal pressure when you're going into the turns.
Look at this, look at this. Does he? No, he doesn't.
Chavez trying to get 9th position away from Kanaan.
If you're going to get a position away from Kanaan, sticking your nose in there is not quite enough.
And back the other side in that group we were watching, Justin Wilson falling back another spot as Luca Filippi goes through him.
Justin Wilson is all over him. If he so much as blinks, he'll get by him.
Justin said the nice thing for him is he gets to get back into a car because he's not a full-time driver this year, but he is doing the Indianapolis 500 for Andretti Autosport. So he said it was great for Michael to put the program together for him to go back and get in the car and just come back out and do things like pit stops so he can get ready for the 500-miler.
You have to retune your brain.
That long delay, that time that you sit out of a car, you know, you and I were talking about that at dinner the other night. When you're out of the car for a period of time, it just takes time, as you call it, to retune your brain to get back into it. Not only driving it and mentally, but physically.
That's true. When I was racing, Grand Prix racing, there was one season I was out of it, and I was invited to race for Carl Haas's Formula One team, and I qualified 10th. And about 9 laps into the race, a drive shaft broke, and I was very happy.
Second pit stop for Ryan Hunter-Reay, Doc.
Yeah, he pitted on lap 9, no adjustments, 4 tires, red tires going back on. Again, the problem with him, inconsistency. The car very tight on entry, and then it breaks free under throttle on exit.
I had that conversation with Ryan just this morning. He said, you know, this is a track that we came here, we thought that we would be so good at. And Jan was mentioning this a little bit earlier on. Just because they thought the car would be so consistent through the long turns, it's turned out to be worse for them. So they're really confused by that. But very hopeful that the aero package that Honda provides them for the Indy 500, which they start testing on Monday, will be much more competitive than the road course package.
All those little bits and pieces are gone. You're going to see both cars, the Chevy and the Honda, that are a lot cleaner.
Let's update you on a couple things while we watch this race from 8th place on back with Coletti, Kanaan, Chavez, Munoz, and Charlie Kimball there, the last one in that line. That threat of rain seems to be dissipating. They've changed the forecast and dropped the chance of a shower for the remainder of the time period of the race to just 20%. And as you look at the sky, it's a little clearer, and the radar, certainly anything that was approaching the area, has broken up as it's come closer. Helio Castroneves back on pit road.
Brings the car in. Interesting to point out in this morning's warm-up, they went for something very different. They decided to go for a one-element wing. They were swinging dead hard, trying to find an advantage. They decided to take it off. They decided it wasn't worth it. He is off strategy. Important to point that out. So it could come back to him at the later end of this race.
What a great race between Coletti and Kanaan. Coletti is using every piece of the track to try to keep Kanaan behind him. Now after this long right-hander, we'll see if Kanaan is close enough to stick his nose down in the back. I think he's too far away, but if he's going to pass him at the end of the straightaway, which is the best place, Scott, if you can get a draft on him, he's got to stick with him all the way around. We'll see if he'll attempt again to get by him and where Coletti positions his car. He's in a perfect place to get a draft.
Probably will use the
draft. He's gaining. Is he going to pull out? Here he goes. They're both going to go down the escape chute here.
Oh,
no, he's
boy. To do that against Kanaan, you've got to be brave.
In my books, Coletti has every right in the world to be cocky tomorrow and all the way through to the Indy 500.
Carlos Munoz, Marco Andretti on and off pit road while we watch this great fight. Kanaan with another good run off the chicane and down the backstretch.
And on the outside. And he's not giving him anything. That's how you're supposed to race. And if you can tell, everybody's still got their front wings on. What a great battle. He's going to stick his nose down here again. No.
This is the part where you want to get the timing, the rhythm right, so you come onto the front stretch and you have another shot going down there. Let's see what he does.
But did you see what Tony did? He took a different line to get a better run out of it. Let's see if he gets a draft again. No, he's too far.
You might think so.
No, he's too,
look.
No, too far. Luck is not a good strategy.
I like that line. So Coletti and Kanaan continue to go at it. Just a side note on this while you watch Kanaan. Remember the Indy cars have that technology on board, the push to pass, where you push the button on the steering wheel and it gives you the momentary burst of horsepower as Kanaan makes another run at Coletti into turn 7.
And Coletti did the smart thing. He actually ran down the inside to take that inside line away from Tony, going down turn 7. And then he blended up to the right-hand side to make the turn.
The problem that Tony has is that Bourdais is right behind him. So if he goes wide, Bourdais will find a way to pass him. So they've got to be very careful, and Kimball is right behind him.
And he's Gabby Chavez.
Chavez, sorry.
The cars look a lot alike here in this race. Just to finish my point on the push to pass, for this race, each team gets to use that 10 times. It lasts 20 seconds. Out of those 10, Kanaan has already used 7.
How about Coletti?
He's only got 3 left. Coletti's got 6 left. Big run for Kimball on Chavez.
That move by Chavez will probably get the attention, I think, of race control, because you don't want to run somebody down towards the wall going in the turn.
Now, while all this is going on, everything's pretty static up front. Will Power leading Graham Rahal by just under 2 seconds, with Simon Pagenaud, Sebastian Bourdais, and Juan Pablo Montoya the rest of the top 5. Back after this from your ABC station. Dixon started on the front row of this race. He's running back in 15th place, though, 32.5 seconds behind the man he shared the front row with, Will Power. Why? Just joining us because the run from the green flag down into turn 1 did not turn out well for Scott and a number of other drivers.
Watch the number 1 car, Will Power, gets off the line, gets into turn first, and Scott Dixon, who we're on board with right there, got hit from the back from the number 3 of Elio Castroneves. Dixon came in for repair not only to the front but also the rear wing.
Pit stop here for Montoya, Doc.
Yeah, he went from the blacks back to the reds, and Juan Pablo Montoya showing amazing patience and conservatism to not use up the race car until they got the reds back on. Rick.
Tony Kanaan brings his car in. Interesting, this morning they gave him a little bit more grip for this race. That's why he's not able to do as well on those straightaways. But the advantage is they said they weren't going to chew up tires as much. He just gets off the reds, goes to the blacks now. We'll see how that affects his balance.
A piece of plastic, a driver visor tear-off hanging from that rear wing of the Kanaan car. And here is the leader, Will Power, headed to pit road. Second stop of the day for Power, who has led all but 5 laps of the 40 that we've completed so far.
All right, guys, better give you a little room.
50 miles an hour in pit lane seems so slow coming off the track.
Stop Billy. 3, 2, 1.
Boy, it's been a picture-perfect weekend for Will Power. He's done well. Qualified on the pole. Now he's dominating the race. It's the first of 2 sessions that he says he wants to dominate. The next being the pole and the win for Indy. Behind him, Simon Pagenaud. They make a quick wing adjustment, have a little trouble getting the fuel nozzle out and send him back out.
The first pit stop was 6.3. The second one is 9.3. That's probably 200 to 300 yards difference on the racetrack.
And that's huge. And as a driver, you're sitting in there and you see your teammate pull out much faster than you do, and you know you've lost all that valuable time on the racetrack. Hard to accept sitting in the cockpit.
All of these pit stops that you're seeing right now are going to carry through to the Indy 500.
And that's a good point, Eddie, because it's not just pressure on the drivers coming when you go for a pit stop, it's also on the crew members, and you're right.
Of all the races you have every year, the one that relies the most on the pit stops, I think, is the Indy 500.
And Sebastian Bourdais in for service.
Running second at the time of the stop, Rick has been in the top 5 about all race.
Sebastian Bourdais brings the car in. He has been very happy with the car this weekend. Interestingly enough, he was not happy with the reds. He said he had a hard time coming to grips with them. They already had a red stint, and now they're shifting back to reds again. So obviously, he's starting to figure those red tires out and wants to take advantage of the gain that you can get from those red tires.
Ray Hall is leading. I know it's because of pit stops right now, but he is in the lead.
So as this second set of green flag pit stops cycles through, these laps that Graham Rahal is doing on low fuel and on older primary tires become critical to him to have some chance to try and close the gap to Will Power on this exchange of pit stops.
Absolutely, he has to push as hard as he possibly can. He has nothing in front of him. It's clear sailing. He can just focus on his driving. His confidence must be sky high right now, because when he looked how the car was performing at the beginning of the season.
Everything you have, my good man. Everything you have.
Everything you have.
His heart rate's already going probably about 108, 190 beats a minute.
When someone came on the radio and said that to you, everything you have, how did you react to it?
Well, you're already giving it everything you have, so I don't know where you find that little bit more, but you try.
You never know how much you can give.
And you saw the car wiggle there. That's what he's talking. You're just getting back on the gas a little sooner, waiting for your braking zone a little longer, but you're trying to make sure you don't lock up those tires.
What I struggle with is that is exactly the same piece of equipment that Team Andretti has. And yet, they're way in the back, and Ray Hall is leading the race. That just goes to show you how competitive this series is.
And, you know, and I think
Coming in, boys.
here he is.
Let's see how fast. Let's see how fast he gets in the pits. And this getting in the pits is probably the hardest part of the lap.
What's he coming in for?
Almost in the grass.
Coming in for a steak burger with cheese, with mustard and ketchup and a shake. And 4
Come in,
tires.
boys.
Okay.
Yes, sir. We're laid out. Pits are wide open.
Now it's time for the team to perform with a fast pit stop.
You talk about the team performing. Eddie, you made a very good point. This is the same equipment that Andretti Autosport has, but this is a one-car team at the moment. They've done all this just with Graham Rahal. Not expecting any changes. They're going back to the red. Oh, another nice stop. A sub-8-second stop for Graham Rahal. Let's see where he blends in.
So there goes Will Power by him on the straightaway. Now, while Graham was out there being told to push on the older tires but light fuel, Will Power was out there with a full fuel load, but...
Watch this. Alan, watch this.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I see it. New red sticker tires. So Power was able to actually open the gap up, and Rahal was able to slide in line and protect his position.
We can forget about Power in this race. He's on it. He's just like a steamroller right now. Nothing can stop him.
I call it a computer program because he is so good when he is in the zone.
All he is missing for his time spent at Penske is an Indianapolis 500 ring. He's done everything else.
After winning pole position for this race yesterday, Will talked about just that. He is so focused on winning the 500. And he said, if I can win the Grand Prix too, how about a sweep at Indy? That'd be sweet. To the 99th 500-mile race that comes up 2 weeks from tomorrow. Did you see the finish of the Cavaliers-Bulls game last night when Derrick Rose banked in the three-pointer at the buzzer for the win? Game 4 here on ABC, the NBA Eastern Conference semifinals tomorrow afternoon. I don't even know if he called glass, but he used it. It was spectacular.
Now here's Will Power getting through some traffic past James Jakes on the tail of him. The 21 car that you're riding on board with right now with Joseph Newgarden aboard the Century 21 machine.
He was trying to pass Power.
Wants his lap back.
He's trying to get back on the lead lap, and he's going to have to work really hard to do that and get around the champ. A look from the Joseph Newgarden car with a reminder to download the IndyCar 15 mobile app and get live streams from in-car cameras and more from Verizon.
That's a tall order to get past Power today.
Well, Joseph made good work of all those guys just recently at Barber.
This is not something that Power needed right now. He's got to find a way to get rid of Hinchcliffe as quickly as he can.
Well, I think James Hinchcliffe in the number 5 car will be the most professional and probably see what's happening behind him. And if he...
Power's too far behind to get by him, and he's got Newgarden right up the back of his gearbox. Newgarden can pass Power at the end of the straightaway.
Newgarden on the push to pass button.
Here he goes. Nope. Is there enough? Yep. Oh, yes. No.
Pardon me?
See, that's what Hinchcliffe was being too kind there. He was trying to give everybody room, and they ran him off the ground, off the road.
So that move on Hinchcliffe puts Power back into the lead. And he's got, by being caught up in that fight with Hinchcliffe, he's got that gap now to Graham Rahal, who takes over second. It was 4 seconds after the pit stop. Being held up in the traffic has cut that in half.
And Rahal can see Power now. It makes a big difference when you can see the driver that you're chasing down. But he has somebody called Montoya who is right behind him.
And Hinchcliffe is about ready to come into the pit lane, so no doubt that his tires have got to about the end of their life, the end of their grip. So he's probably just trying to put those laps in just to get inside his fuel window.
We'll see if he comes in this time. And nope.
He's still got a few more laps he can stay out there. Remember, Hinchcliffe off sequence with some of these other leaders took some damage in the lap 1, turn 1 crash and had to pit in the opening lap of the race, and that has altered his strategy for the day. Here's Bourdais, who will get through. Going back to that conversation that we all had together with Sebastian Bourdais yesterday, one of the challenges these teams face in trying to sort out these new aero kits at each different race course is the fact that they are not allowed to have any of those red sidewall tires until qualifying day. So they can't go out and test on them. They can't go out and practice on them on the promoter test day or on practice sessions. The first time they strap them on the car, or bolt them on the car as it might be, is qualifying. And so how to tune your car for the different sidewall constructions and different characteristics and so on of that tire is something that Bourdais felt his team was missing just a little bit.
And I think the other side of that too is that some of the other teams that are out there, that for instance like Penske that have 4 cars, they have 4 drivers that are very equal. So when they send those cars out on red tires, they get information that's probably applicable to all 4 cars. So they get to be able to tune the car a little quicker than maybe some of the other teams.
Then I'm going to argue the other side of that. Then how come Rahal is second and keeping all those other Chevys behind him? It's a single car there.
And I've said earlier in the year, a different Graham Rahal driving the car this year. And I understand to your point, but they in their engineering group right now have done a great job in getting the most out of their car.
Munoz with a little lockup, trying to pass Trecconi. Gets that cleanly made. Trecconi a lap down in 24th place. Jack Hawksworth has spent some time on the pit lane and is on the pit lane still. Hawksworth involved also in that turn 1, lap 1 crash, and he is the last place car. Past halfway in the Grand Prix of Indianapolis, Will Power has done a lot of the leading in this one. Indianapolis today in 2 weeks, the 99th Indianapolis 500-mile race. Our telecast presented by Firestone on the big track. Sunday, May 24th, our coverage starts at 11 a.m. Eastern on ABC. Last year's race was spectacular, as was the year before's, as was the year before that. We expect more of the same in a couple of weeks here from the Brickyard. Will Power is the race leader in this second Grand Prix of Indianapolis. 52 laps down, 30 laps to go. Time now for the Carfax up to speed. We check in the leader's pit with Rick.
Well, earlier today, we were talking about the fact that Graham Rahal says that Honda car, you're not quite sure what it's going to do. You have to work around it. Will Power was saying the Chevy Aero kit's been exactly the opposite. He's been able to tune the car to exactly what he wants it to be. And when you think about it, when Will Power has the car exactly the way it wants to be, this is what you get. A guy who starts in the front, runs up ahead, and controls the pace. And he's doing that right now. Jan?
And of course, Graham Rahal had a slightly different pit strategy, going a couple of laps longer, but now you see he is shadowing Joseph Newgarden. We've talked about how aggressive he is in the car. He's also been somewhat aggressive on the radio.
Can we not get some help from Newgarden? I mean, he's not in this thing. You try, but I doubt it. I'll go try.
Obviously, he's going to try to pull out whatever stops he can. He wants to close down on Will Power. Doc?
Back in third spot, Juan Pablo Montoya. Now, John Boslog is the strategist. He's the engineer making the call for Montoya. And he and Montoya talked this morning. They talked about, as John's looking on and watching the monitor, taking care of that front wing and being very, very careful to take care of the tires. Remember what happened at St. Pete when Will Power dominated the race, but in the final stint, it was Montoya that ran him down past him and won it. Montoya being patient now until the final stop. Let's go to Rick.
Sebastian Bourdais right behind. He's been happy with the car today. One of the things they're doing is working a little bit of a fuel strategy. One of their hopes is that they can go at least a lap further than the cars ahead of them, in particular Will Power, so he get one big solid lap that he can go on low fuel and possibly gain a little bit more time while they're pitting and hopefully come back out in a better position. That's his plan. Right behind him is Simon Pagenaud. Now, the rear has not gone exactly the way he's wanted. Obviously, he hasn't had the results, but he pointed out he's not frustrated. As a result, he knows that he's had a new team. They're all having to come to grips with each other. And we have to point out his regular engineer, Ben Bretzman, is not here this weekend because his wife had a baby just a couple of days ago. As a result, he's got a new chief engineer, Ron Rzuski, from the team. So there's even more new stuff to have to come to grips with this weekend. Doc?
And behind them, give a call to California driver J.R. Hildebrand. Folks, he has not been in an IndyCar in a year. Last May, when he finished 10th in the Indianapolis 500, he said, "I was disappointed with my qualifying run. I asked the team to give me a little more gear." They gave him gear, and this morning he was in the top 10 in the final warm-up. Right now he is running 6th and feeling very comfortable in the car. Jan.
And we should also, Doc, I think, give a shout out to Charlie Kimball. We haven't seen him too much today. He was disappointed with his 14th qualifying just said I didn't get the ultimate out of the car on that single lap. But as his engineer told me, and he says as well, I race much better than I qualify, and he's having a good run today. Rick?
Elio Castroneves, we talked about at the beginning of the broadcast, his 300th start. If he could win it, it would be his 30th win. That's his goal. Of course, now his goal is just to get up front. They are on an off strategy. They came in on an off set of pit stops, but they've been talking to him about fuel. The goal to save the fuel as much as possible and hopefully end up on the same strategy that everybody else is before the race is over. So right now he's in 8th. That's not bad considering that first lap issue.
Yeah, that's the big story of the race so far. Just joining us, a turn 1 crash on the first lap of the race. Started with Castroneves and second place starter Scott Dixon making contact. It wound up collecting a total of 7 cars in the incident. Castroneves, Dixon, Justin Wilson, Jack Hawksworth, among those who had to go to pit road after the very first lap of the race and give up all the track position they worked so hard to earn in qualifying. Castroneves has been digging out of that hole ever since.
One guy that did not get out of the hole, Joseph Newgarden, because he stalled his car in that altercation in turn 1. So now he's 3rd from last, so very difficult run for him, really in a hometown race for their sponsor.
And I'm sure Dixon will have words with Castroneves after this race because he was hit from behind at the start of a race, which was kind of not expected.
So Graham Rahal continuing to have Joseph Newgarden between himself and race leader Will Power.
He's really hurting our pace now. I know he's killing your pace, so we're racing the guys behind us. Power's getting away. We can't worry about him. We got to worry about the guys behind.
So Rahal is gaining under braking, and this is a direct battle, Scott, between a Honda and a Chevy. So we can see which car is gaining where on the circuit, and I think the Chevy is quicker at the end of the straightaway because he can't get close enough to get a good toe.
And what's happening here is that Rahal is on the radio talking to his team, trying to get maybe race control or maybe his spotter to go and talk to the spotter for Joseph Newgarden's car and just say, hey, give me some brake here, let me go past. And the reason being is that Rahal is 2nd in the race right now. Newgarden is classified 23rd, which I just mentioned a moment ago, from being taken out in that turn 1 accident. The car was stalled. But right now, honestly,
he's not close enough.
Newgarden's a little quicker, so Newgarden's doing the right thing. He just wants to move forward. He's got his foot in the gas.
Simon Pagenaud off the pace from 5th place. Last year's winner of this race in trouble.
Sounds like he's not in the correct gear. I wonder if he's got a gearbox locked into a higher gear.
No smoke.
Rick, you got the story?
Unfortunately, no. In fact, the team looks very worried. They were trying to figure out what the issue is. They're going to go to bring him in. Kyle Moyer, who's on the radio with them right now, trying to get things straightened out. It is so frustrating because, once again, he just has not had the finishes this year that the team has been counting on, hoping that they were going to be able to pull those off. Now that he's come to the Penske team, let's see when they bring him in and what they're going to be doing. Initially, when they bring in a car, no matter what the circumstance, they try to treat it like a routine fuel stop, routine pit stop. So they go to work on it the way they normally do. Then it becomes a matter of trying to figure everything else that is wrong with the car. Right now, they're treating it normally. Yep, they're talking about changing the ECU, the electronic control unit. They're concerned that that's the issue. A lot of times, when you don't know what the problem is and you know it's complicated, it's easier just to change out the ECU, and that's exactly what they're going to have to do.
So troubles for Simon Pagenaud, and it takes him out of 5th place. You saw Ryan Hunter-Reay come by as well, making his last scheduled pit stop with 24 laps to go. Listen to this replay from on board Pagenaud's car.
Go to emergency mode. Go to emergency mode. I did. Smells of burning. Something's burning. Okay, pit on this lap. Pit on this lap.
He's stuck in a gear.
It almost sounds like because the motor's flat, but changing to the emergency mode just to change over the ECU to see if he can recycle through it. But as he says, smelling like something is burning inside, so it sounds like that might be a little bit more intense than just changing the ECU box.
Rick?
Helio Castroneves brings the car in. The significant thing here is that there are 24 laps to go in the race. They have run this car about as far as they possibly could. The hope now is that if he can conserve his fuel, this will be the last stop he will have to make for the rest of the race. Now, the downside is he can't get racy out there. He's got to go with a good, solid strategy.
24 laps is a lot of laps.
Here's the race leader, Will Power, in. So again, back to that situation where Graham Rahal's team was hoping to make that desperate drive to see, and Bourdais, it was also reporting, trying to go a lap further and make the desperate drive to try and close the ground. Here it is playing out now. Doc?
Juan Pablo Montoya, final stop. They will put sticker reds, and now they can turn the Colombian loose. Hope for the same result. Rick.
Will Power brings the car in. They put sticker reds on. They make no adjustments and send him back out. Why make an adjustment when you're dominating the race?
So, final pit stop for the man who's dominated the race. How will it cycle out when the stops are done? We're back to the Brickyard after this from your ABC station. Watching Graham Rahal exit the pit lane after making his stop. There goes Will Power by. Newgarden still in front of Rahal and Sebastian Bourdais as they come off the pit road. And Juan Pablo Montoya may be able to pick up some spots here.
He has 2 corners to do it in. Then Rahal's tires will be up to temperature.
And when you are coming out, when you're talking about tire temperature, the tires are cold, the pressure's not built up, the car moves around on you, it waddles underneath you. But right now,
Rahal's got to pass
so
him.
important because he knows he needs to dispatch of Newgarden to give him that distance in between him.
Now he needs Newgarden to try to slow down Montoya. That'd be the perfect thing for him for the next 3 or 4 corners. If he can just get a 150, 200-yard gap, that'll give him enough space.
So will Montoya here, the red and white car, try it on the entrance to 12. The blue flag is waved just a little bit for the 21 machine of Joseph Newgarden. Now this is where the timing is so crucial for the number 2. Penske machine and Juan Pablo Montoya to make sure he timed it right to get the draft so he can go on past. And here's exactly what he's doing.
Half 2, make 3-3. Still needs to go by him.
And that is the end of that one. Now he's got to hunt down Rahal.
So Juan Pablo was getting some fuel mileage numbers telling him what he needed to get, and he said, I guess he had the fuel turned up on that. He just said I need to get past him, which he really did. He could not be left behind him.
But let's remember that Rahal was the last one to come in for fuel, so he doesn't have to go into a fuel economy run, which I don't think is the case for Castroneves, and I'm not sure about Montoya, but he has more fuel on board, so if he has that potential to use more fuel, it'll come in handy now from here to the end of the race.
And from speaking to everybody in the garage here this morning, they say that if you're running full rich, that means full fuel to get maximum horsepower, maximum speed, that the Honda cars are capable of at least 1, maybe even almost 2 laps more, and that might be what Graham Rahal is headed to do. Jan Bikas?
He actually has 2 things in his back pocket, Scott, is that they saved their best tires for last as well. He put on a sticker set of red sidewall alternates, and you are correct, because he went a lap longer, he therefore does not have to save the same level of fuel as, let's say, Will Power would need to do. So this will be very interesting. I know the gap is large. However, Graham Rahal, they saved much for the end, and again, punching way above his weight class, and he may have more to come.
He really is punching above his weight class, because everybody running the Hondas here this weekend knows that they have been down just a little bit. Watch the Honda telemetry, full throttle all the way over the curbing, going through the chicane, now down Holman Boulevard. Watch the speed here, how fast you go and how slow you have to make all the way down to the left-hand turn down to 70 miles an hour.
That car you can see ahead of him, that's Power. You can barely see him disappearing around the corner up front. That makes such a difference when you're chasing somebody down that you can see them. When they tell you on a board that you're 6 seconds away and you can't see them, it's very difficult to be as motivated as when you can actually see the back of their gearbox. So now this is a battle of wills between Rahal and Power.
And as you mentioned before, a battle between the super team.
72-3.
Super team in a single team. And everybody keeps saying that you cannot win races if you only have a single team. That's proof that that's incorrect.
So there's the gap, first to second to third. Will Power to Graham Rahal to Juan Pablo Montoya. Someone very close to Graham cheering him on. His fiancée.
There's some more motivation right there.
And by the way, a winning race driver all her own in the drag racing circuit. Live at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway with 16 laps to go in the Grand Prix of Indianapolis. Our Mother's Race Rundown stories on the day, the Turn 1 Lap 1 crash that collected so many possible contenders.
Took Dixon out when it was really uncalled for. Once Dixon started spinning, there was that accordion effect in the back, and all hell broke loose.
Scott Dixon tapped by Helio Castroneves in the rush down to Turn 1 to start that pole jam up. Will Power has been dominant in this one. Started on the pole and he's done most of the leading.
Team Penske, one of the powerhouses here with the Chevrolet motors, and everybody expected them to be very strong. Now Will's not been very results oriented here in those last few races, but I'll tell you what, he's going to have somebody chasing right now with Graham Rahal, who's in second. This is going to be a great battle when it comes down to the last few laps, guys.
This is pure Honda versus Chevy in fuel efficiency at the end. Nobody expected this to happen today.
So the gap has gone from just about 4 seconds between the top two down to just under 3. It's 2.8 seconds now. Question is, how much fuel might this one need to save to make it to the finish, if that's a factor in all of this pacing? Let's check downstairs with Rick.
And the guy who's going to have the answer to that is Tim Cindric, who's the strategist for Will Power. And that's the question. Does he have enough fuel to battle it out to the end with Graham Rahal?
Yeah, I think we're having to save a little bit here. We came in a lap sooner than we thought. We had heard a report that there was a car that was slowing on the track that might not make it back, so we didn't want to get caught out with a caution. So the other guys obviously have a little bit more fuel than we do. I think the lap traffic is what I'm most concerned about.
The gap has been closing strictly as a result of saving fuel, and how many laps do you have to do that before you have to start worrying about getting ahead of Graham or staying ahead?
Well, I think it's more about the lap traffic, how much it backs us up to Graham more than it is the fuel.
All right, once again, Tim Cindric, the guy responsible for Will Power strategy. Alan?
All right, Rick, thanks.
Well, I think what we've seen here also is that Will now knows that Graham has been closing in on, because quite a few laps ago, Graham Rahal was about a half a second faster per lap and catching Will Power, and now Will's turned up the whip just a little bit and the laps are just about even, but still each time Graham Rahal 2/10, 3/10, and maybe that's going to be enough time for him to get close to Will Power, because Graham is doing a terrific job.
It's all going to depend on where they both find traffic, and right now Power, if he gets it right, he should be able to get past the first car at the end of the next long straight.
14 laps to go. We'll continue to track this fight for the lead as we go side by side. Closing laps of the Grand Prix of Indianapolis. There it is. There's the gap, first to second, with 12 to go in the Grand Prix of Indianapolis. Will Power leading Graham Rahal by an ever-shrinking margin. How much is Power saving fuel? How much is Rahal just plain faster? And how will it turn out when we get to the finish line just over 11 laps from now?
It seems that the Honda engines are just rejuvenating themselves as we go through with this race. Rahal is chasing down Power, and the fastest lap of the race is Hinchcliffe in another Honda. And he is definitely closing the gap.
We heard from Tim Cindric on the Will Power strategy earlier. Let's hear from Jan on the Graham Rahal team strategy.
Yes, and that would be Rico Nall, who's on the radio to Graham. In fact, he's talking to him right now. I know you've been working him through traffic. You must be excited. It looks like you've got great pace on Power.
Yeah, sorry to catch all that, but yeah, Graham's been doing a great job in the Steak and Shake car. We've been pitting later than everybody else to try to get out in front of the traffic, and it's been working so far. Risky moves, but Graham's making it pay off for us, just like last week in Barber, where we stuffed him in the dirt. He drove himself out of it, and he's doing it today too. He's doing a great job. I can't be more proud of him.
A lot of excited crew members here on Rahal Lanigan Racing. Alan?
All right, Jan, so they're watching their driver, and as they say, drive the wheels off the thing, trying to work his way up to the man generally acknowledged as the road course master in this sport, along with Scott Dixon. Now, one number to look at Top of the screen coming by. Will Power with 6 push-to-pass buttons left. Graham Rahal with just the 1. If they get down into it, let's say there's a full course caution and they have a restart, Will's going to be able to use one on each of these straightaways to try and get away. Graham's only got 1 bullet left in that.
And catching Power is one thing, getting by him is another. So you're right, he definitely has an advantage, but nobody expected Rahal to be second.
Here's the race for third, Montoya and Bourdais. This is going on 6.5 seconds behind the race lead.
And Bourdais, a winner here in sports cars a few years ago, knows his track very well, as does Juan Pablo Montoya from his Formula One days.
It just goes to the distance between Power and Montoya, which is 6 seconds, almost 7 seconds, shows you what great form Power is on, to be able to put that much distance between him and Montoya, the winner of the first race this year in St. Pete. That is a great performance.
So back to the top 2. And that lead between Power and Rahal now stabilizing somewhat, in fact growing a little bit on the last lap, back up to 2.5 seconds.
And Power has not used his extra power button yet.
Right.
Last 2 laps, I think we've seen Will Power just turn a little bit quicker lap than Graham, so maybe he's feeling a little bit more comfortable and confident he has enough fuel, so maybe a fuel trim number was changed on his steering wheel to allow him to use more fuel, which equals more power, which equals a faster lap time.
While we watch these guys race, a couple of side notes for you. Simon Pagenaud's car was retired from the race, and now Justin Wilson's car has been retired from the race. Remember, in the last couple of IndyCar races, every starter finished, which was the first time in open wheel history that 2 consecutive races had all cars running at the finish.
Yeah,
they won't make it 3 in a row.
That's impressive.
Right now, Montoya is under a lot of pressure.
And if he doesn't get past the car in front, which I believe is Draconi.
Oh, and that when you get forced to put your nose in a place where you really don't want to do it, as he doesn't want to do it right now, is where you make a mistake. But Montoya has so much experience. He's going to get in his draft. He's going to pass him at the end of the straightaway, but he has to be careful of the car behind him.
Carlos Huertas is the car that
I thought maybe
Montoya and Bourdais are now overtaking. Huertas back in 19th place and now 1 lap down.
And that battle continues.
Scott Dixon turned the fastest lap in the race last circuit, but he's back in 12th place. Will Power turned the second fastest lap, the third fastest lap of all cars in the field that last lap. So he has, in fact, turned the wick back up a little bit and begun to try and leg it out on Graham Rahal. There you see the interval first to second beginning to grow once again.
Graham Rahal is using every inch of the track.
Couple things on Graham. First, nothing can be harder than sharing a name with a champion, an Indy 500 winner, and following in those footsteps and trying to establish your own presence. Graham,
Adam, I see that 7 laps to go.
Graham came on and had some quick success, and the expectations grew very, very fast with that win that he had down in St. Petersburg some years ago. Trying to follow in that, manage all of that pressure, build a race team around you and so on. It's not an easy thing to do, but he seems to have grown very comfortably into that role and establishing his own persona and personality as a hopeful leading man in this IndyCar series.
And he's gone through difficult times. I think the mettle of a driver is not so much how you get on the scene and you win a race, but how you come out of difficult moments. And the last 2 seasons for him, Scott, have not been easy. So to be able to come out with what everybody believes is inferior equipment with a Honda car and to be the fastest Honda driver and to beat all the other Honda teams, I think it's a great accomplishment for him as a leader and a driver in that team. And his father's presence is obviously still there and felt, but he definitely, like Alan said, has kind of taken the reins of everything.
And he said this weekend that if he can't be winning the race, he wants to be first in class, as people are starting to talk about it here at the racetrack, that's being first with the Honda power. But, you know, has Honda maybe made some gains? Do they race better than they qualify? That looks to be the case. Obviously, we're anxious to see what happens here in 2 weeks for the Indianapolis 500. But just to cap off the pressure on the driver, another guy that has that in this series, Marco Andretti, with the Andretti last name.
Talked to Helio Castroneves at the top of the show. 300 start, looking to see if he could cap that big day and celebrate a birthday tomorrow with a trip to Victory Lane at the Speedway today. Castroneves involved in the contact with Scott Dixon, turn 1, lap 1, and he is running in 6th position right now, which is an excellent recovery from that 21st place he was after the first turn.
But it was definitely not the result he was looking for, and he has a car that could run up front, and those things just happen, I guess. But he is the only driver in the field that if he wins the Indy 500 this year will be a 4-time winner.
And you saw a car go off, use the escape road in turn 1. That was Stefano Coletti, who ended up not making it through turn 1 in the KVRT racing machine. So it looks like he may have lost a couple of positions because of that.
Mentioned Castroneves and Dixon. Scott Dixon recovering to 12th place, but he's 42 seconds off the race leader, Will Power. And what about Will? All the conversation about championships that got away, and he solved that riddle at the end of last season and became a champion. And came into this season with a renewed stride of confidence, and then has had a couple of races where everything hasn't gone perfectly, and some raised an eyebrow. But he has come into this month of May at Indianapolis on his stride, full of determination and full of, that bad pun, but a will to solve the other riddle that eluded him besides the championship, which is the 500-mile race. Every year seems like something's gone wrong for Will Power in the Indianapolis 500. He's determined to fix that this year.
And let me add one other thing that they put in, that they changed in his life. He won the championship, won on a super speedway at the end of the season, and then the captain put the best free agent inside of the team just to make sure he stayed motivated. And he has been so fast this season. And like we said earlier, the only thing that's missing in his trophy shelf is an Indy 500 win. And Scott, I believe if he can make it through the month and learn from Castroneves, he will be Castroneves' biggest nemesis to him winning his 4th.
Well, they share all their information at Team Penske, so each driver can go in and look at the data from the other driver and see how he's driving the race course, whether it's on a road course, a street course, or an oval. But I think one person that's in Team Penske that you can draw a lot of information about and how to drive a car on an oval, and especially the Indianapolis 500.
Let me guess, Rick Mears.
Rick Mears. And I spoke with Rick this morning, and he said Will is getting settled, he's getting comfortable, he's very fast, and he said he's mentally stronger. So I think that overall, you look at a guy that has, yes, without a doubt, thrown a couple of championships away for Team Penske. There's pressure for driving for Team Penske, there's no doubt about it. But he now seems to be very comfortable in his own skin and doing just, and everybody in the garage area agrees, he is so fast.
Down to 3 laps to go in Indianapolis for a winner's trophy from this speedway. Yes, there's that really tall trophy with all of those faces so elegantly carved on it that everyone wants so badly in 2 weeks. But absolutely, Will Power will be, if he's able to run out these final 3 laps, jubilant at taking home this trophy from Indianapolis and having a shot at the Brickyard Sweep.
Not just him, the team, Chevy, his engineers, the strategist, everybody. They go into those 2 weeks of qualifying and racing at May. It makes such a big difference. And it's always great to win anything at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And he's a master at this.
While we watch him hold his advantage over Graham Rahal, thinking ahead to next weekend, they had an open test day last Sunday on the oval for the cars in the new oval trim aero kits. Speeds were up a little bit from opening day a year ago. A lot of questions of will we see an increase in speed from last year when we saw the pole get back into the 230s? Is Arie Luyendyk's long-standing record of a single lap at 2:37 and a 4-lap average of 2:36 in play? I don't know if that's in play this year, but I think they're going to be faster than they were a year ago when we see the runs for the pole next weekend.
I think you'll easily see a 3 to 4 mile increase in speeds. And the tracks, since I was racing in that period, and the tracks have become a lot safer, the cars have become a lot safer, the drivers' helmets are safer. So I think it's good that they let the cars go faster.
The speeds increase. Yes. Well, I was watching here on Sunday when they were out running, and as a fan, obviously,
4 with 2 laps to go.
some information from Tin Cindric, who's the strategist, calling it for Will Power. You know, and I was sitting in turn 3 watching the cars go through the turns, and they are fast. Both Honda cars and Chevy cars, the cars seem to work well. Everybody expects a 2 or 3, maybe 4 mile an hour increase, as you mentioned.
What a great performance from Power and Penske today. Qualified on pole, pulled away from everybody, hasn't put a wheel wrong. Very deserving win. All he has to do now, Alan, is just execute for 1 more lap. He almost makes it look easy, doesn't he?
Oh, you say that, I was just about ready to add, isn't the last lap always the hardest? That's when you want to make sure that...
Flag there, 1 more.
Do you back off the pace a little bit to give yourself just a little bit of comfort zone? But when you do that, you know, it changes the rhythm.
He's in a
driving the car in the cockpit. So what you do is you go out there and you just do the same thing you did the previous laps and put it all away.
Well, he's given away about 0.4 of a second of his lead to Graham Rahal on that last lap, but it's still 1.8 seconds as he heads through the chicane and down Holman Way towards turn number 7 and a half a lap to go.
You're good on fuel. You can use the overtake or whatever you need.
That's music.
Yeah, still
use the overtake and you have
6
fuel.
overtakes still left. He's
He couldn't use 6 overtakes if he wanted to from here to the end. I wonder if he gets any cash back on that.
Rebate card?
What a performance.
I don't think he's all that concerned about the cash back because he's going to get a winner's trophy from Indianapolis here in a few seconds. Masterful drive. Last year's series champion opens his month of May with an incredible performance. After starting on pole, he'll lead 65 of the 82 laps. And here he is off the final corner with an Indianapolis checkered flag in sight. Second Grand Prix of Indianapolis goes to the champ, Will Power.
Good machine today. Awesome job, man. You say you want an Indy now. Do it next time.
Good morning, go. Qualifying to 500. Good job, boys. Awesome job in the pits. Great day.
Man, get us to slot 8 and dash 1 when you can.
25th career win and first win of this season for Will Power. And if you count all of the other victories that Roger Penske has had in the Indianapolis 500-mile race and add this one in there, the captain's 16th win here at the Speedway in IndyCar competition.
Yes, that man just continues to win races at Indy.
Well, Will Power, 3 wins last year on his way to a championship. And he's on the board this year. Remember how much he dominated the season opener at St. Petersburg here on ABC, but had a pit hiccup on his last stop that put him behind Juan Pablo Montoya, and his desperate attempt to pass Juan Pablo cost him a chunk of his front wing, and he had to settle for second place. Well, no such settling today. Dominance, the only way to describe the drive of Will Power, and a huge tip of the cap to Graham Rahal for a tremendous effort to bring his car home in second place. Montoya held off Board A for third, so 2 of the top 3 on the podium will be owned by Roger Penske in this one.
And he managed to dominate Montoya, who everybody thought was going to come into this race and beat everybody. That was...
Yeah, man, I worked for that one. Holy moly.
His month of May started off on the right foot.
You started to say he worked for that one. There's no doubt that as a driver inside the cockpit, with as fast as this track is and as difficult it is to make sure you hit all your marks without going off, superb job, not a wheel wrong, but both physically and mentally draining for a driver.
6 different drivers led the race. Most of those exchanges came during pit stops. Power dominated, leading 65 of the 82 laps. Only the 1 caution in the race, and that was for the yellow in turn 1 on lap 1. We ran green from the restart at lap 3 all the way to the end. No other incidents requiring a full course yellow.
And that incident did take out 2 drivers that would have had a lot to say in this race, Castroneves and Dixon. But that takes nothing away from Will Power's dominant win today.
So Will becomes the 5th different winner in 5 Verizon IndyCar Series races in 2015. Said that whoever won today was going to have to fight hard to earn it. And certainly that was the case from the first turn down to the last.
A lot of stuff to unhook when you get out of these things.
It looks a little worn out.
He could jump in and do that again.
Will Power doing a balancing act on the front of the car. You did a balancing act for that last stint. Of course, you didn't have to battle car to car, but you had that specter of Graham Rahal right behind you, and you had to hit your fuel number. How hard was that last stint?
Well, that was hard when he told me the number I had to get, and then he said Rahal's closing. He's 8/10 quicker than you right now. Like, man, this is hard. So I just started trying to save in the spots that would not lose time and just push like hell in the other areas. And that's the most physical race I think I've ever done. Like, it never stopped. But I was so determined to win. Like, I just thought I don't want anything to go wrong. I don't want to get caught out by yellow. I just want a clean race, and that's exactly what we got. So really happy for all the boys on the Verizon car. It's pretty special to win here.
Now, you talked the other day about how there are 4 sessions you want to control. First was qualifying for the Grand Prix. Second was winning the Grand Prix. Next is going to be pole for the 500. And then finally the 500. Does this mean you're halfway there?
I am halfway there. You got it right, man. I'm going for all 4. And I'm very determined. You know, now I've won a championship. The 500 is absolutely on my mind. And that's the one race I want to win.
He's a totally different man. Yes, he's got that championship behind him. He's a road course veteran. He knows what to do there. But now he is focusing completely, after he kisses his wife, on the Indy 500.
The 9th consecutive year Will Power has won a race in the Verizon IndyCar Series. He's done it here in Indianapolis to start his month of May with a victory in the Grand Prix. Qualifying for the 500 next weekend. Back after this.
And if you win, you'll leave as a legend.
Hunter-Ray almost clips the grass.
He did it. What a gutsy move.
3 to go. 3 to go.
What a pass. Castroneves the leader. Ryan Hunter-Ray to the outside of checkered flag. Ryan Hunter-Ray wins the Indianapolis 500. It was spectacular. And we can't wait for the 99th running of the great 500-mile race that comes up 2 weeks from tomorrow here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Month of May activities starting today with the Grand Prix. Will Power won. Graham Rahal with a 2nd consecutive runner-up finish, and what a drive for him, Jan.
It was an incredible drive, Alan, and of course there was huge celebration. In fact, it's a bit of a win in a way. I think you used the words to me in practice of being demoralized. This was an incredible turnaround. How did you gain that much pace in the race?
Well, I think, it's this team, and, I think my racecraft helps a little bit, but, really I got to give it to my guys because the pit stops were good. We were able to make some moves when we had to.